Stories.
And I am Paul Thompson, founder of Water Babies.
Excellent, and welcome to Franchising Brand Stories, Season 5, brought to you by FranRec, the specialist UK staff and executive recruiters for the franchise industry. And this is the show where we get under the hat of some of the top brands in the UK and in the world. And this is a live show. Well, it's live if it's February the 13th at 5:15 GMT for about 50 minutes. So if you're here, then please pop in a comment, get involved, ask a question, because this is about our community and this is about getting involved and this is about telling the stories behind these brands and meeting the wonderful people that have started these fantastic brands. So this is for you, and the story we're going to hear today is Water Babies with the lovely Paul Thompson. Paul, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
You're most welcome. Well, we're going to get into things today, and we always start with a nice simple question. And we start with just trying to describe to people who are watching, who are thinking about maybe investing in a franchise, what is Water Babies? Give us an idea of what that is as a business.
Sure, I'm sure you might guess a little bit in the title, bit of a clue in the title, but we are a baby and toddler swimming franchise business. When we started Water Babies, our target market was 0 to 5 years old. Our youngest client was 1 day old. So we're a real specialist in newborn baby swimming, absolutely. But we're now going up to older age group children as well. But we're a baby and toddler swim school. And there are 3 bits to the Water Babies franchise model. There's swimming, which is the core of what we do. But we're also well known for underwater photography. That's a Nirvana shot that people may well have seen, babies swimming around underwater. So we're the largest producers in the world of those, and we also have a product division where we sell products related to our program to our client base. Those are the sort of 3 elements. But Water Babies is a baby and toddler swim school.
Fantastic. Excellent stuff. And my 2 children, when they were very young, both swam from about the age of, I think, 2 weeks, something like that. So it's such a fantastic thing to do. And I have that Nirvana underwater picture somewhere at home as well. So, yes, I completely, that resonates with me a lot. Look, before we get into things, we've got a few people here live with us today. So let's say hello. We have the ever-wise Simon Wise. Good to have you with us, Simon. He's put hello, franchise friends. We have Julie Waits with us as well. Great to have you with us, Julie. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this story. We have Craig with us as well from Florida. Great to have you with us, Craig. I hope you enjoy the story. Always good to have you with us. And we've got the lovely Katrina Newman with us. Fantastic to have you with us as well. So I hope you all enjoy this story. And let's get into this. We're just trying now to build a picture of where you're at today, and we've understood what you are as a business. That's nice and straightforward. How many franchisees do you have at the moment, and sort of whereabouts in the UK can you be found?
So we have just over 70 franchises, and we operate right across the UK, but also internationally as well. So we're in 6 countries around the world, Canada, the USA, Ireland, all over the UK, and in China and the Netherlands. So that's where we operate. As I say, we have a network of just over 70 franchises across all of those territories. But the core of the business is in the UK.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Well, look, we are now going to get into the main part of the story, and we're going to take you back in time in a minute, Paul. But before we do that, if you have just joined us, this is Franchising Brand Stories, brought to you by FranRec, the specialist staff and executive recruiter to the UK franchise industry. And if you have just joined us, there's a little QR code on the screen, top left, and that will take you right back to the beginning in case you missed the beginning. If you see a snippet of this in the future, then please scan that QR code, because it's a fantastic story that we're going to hear today. So let's do that right now. Let's get into it, and let's take you right back in time, Paul. So where was the spark of this idea?
It's a long time ago now. I had hair back then. Well, Water Babies is 22 years old. It started back in 2002. So 23 years old, so 23rd year actually, back in 2002. And it started in Ilkley in North Yorkshire. But the story began before that. I used to be a surveyor. I was a development director working in the property industry and living in Brighton at the time. I had a very high-powered job, being very busy, running the corporate ladder. And my daughter was born, and I was at a board meeting one night, and my whole life changed over a split infinitive. I was talking to a load of old committee members about a project we were looking to do in Brighton. It's about 8 o'clock in the evening. None of them understood what I was talking about. I wasn't seeing my daughter. She was a few weeks old. And I just thought, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it anymore. Working all the hours God sends and not seeing my child. And I'm very maverick. I've always believed you get one go in life. I've never been sort of frightened to throw the cards up in the air. I'm not particularly driven by money. It's not the only thing that's important to me. And cut a long story short, I decided in the very short walk home that evening I was going to hand my notice in and give it all up. And that's what I did a few days later. Then moved to the Caribbean, became a scuba diving instructor, got wiped out by...
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was quite... That's a whole other story. Got wiped out by a hurricane, moved back to the UK, had nowhere to live, moved in with my mum, became a stay-at-home dad with my wife, became a stay-at-home dad, and started taking my daughter to various children's activities. And one of them was baby swimming, which I'd never really heard of. In Brighton, there was a company which I'd heard of, but it wasn't on my life radar. I started taking her to baby swimming classes and just was blown away by what I saw. Just thought, this is amazing. I saw her really develop in terms of her confidence and physiological development, and I just loved it. And because of my teaching background in scuba diving, I was really fascinated. I was constantly in the ear of the instructor, who eventually said to me one day, why don't you become a teacher? Just totally random. And I did. I became a teacher. And when I taught my first classes, it was a real life-changing, life bolt moment. I was just born to do it. We call it the thing in Water Babies. I just had this natural empathy for babies and toddlers swimming, which was really bizarre. If you knew me back then, you would absolutely laugh at that fact. I was a typical big, black, hairy, rugby-playing dude. If you told me that I was going to go and the rest of my life teaching swimming to mums and babies, I would have laughed. But that I really thought this was, I'd found my thing. And I looked around at the industry and I found a very well-meaning industry, but one that was, if I'm being honest, quite amateur. And I thought it could just be done a lot better. I'm very big on professionalism and being world-class and those sort of things. I just felt it could be done better. And that was the spark of the idea. We then sort of managed to move out of my mum, went traveling again and decided we were going to move to Yorkshire, a completely random move. And we moved up to Ilkley in Yorkshire. And that's when we decided we were going to give it a go. And that was in the winter of 2002, when we decided we were going to start the business. I bought the name Water Babies randomly just before, through fate, I managed to get it. And that's when the seed was born.
That's amazing. What a story. Going, and quite a risk at the time. I think if you're a potential franchisee listening to this story and you've just heard that story of what you did there, it was quite a risk. It was quite an upheaval, wasn't it, at the time, giving up that probably well paid and, the job that you've kind of gone down that career path, hadn't you? And, to make that change. And that's exactly the reason I think a lot of people become a franchisee. They've got to a point where they want to make a change. They want to do something different.
Absolutely. I think franchising definitely gives people that opportunity, but you're right. So I think you tend to have something seismic, not always, but lots of our franchisees, it's very much the case. Happens to me. You tend to have something seismic that happens in your life. It just makes you think about things very differently. Being unhappy at work, having a child, wanting a different sort of work-life balance, that old cliche, but, wanting something different. Always having an entrepreneurial bent as well, wanting to do something on my own. It all kind of coalesced. And even though I didn't know what it was going to be, making the change then lent to an opportunity happening. That I found my niche, and that was Water Babies. That was starting.
Found your thing.
Found my thing. Indeed.
I
But
like
think
that
that's,
expression.
as you say, of lots of people who go into franchising, whether they're franchisors or starting a franchise business or franchisees coming into franchising, they've had some significant change or some realization. For us, it's very much because most of our franchisees are mums, not all of them, but the vast majority. And it's actually very similar to my story. It's them leaving work, going maternity leave, and realizing actually they've now got a new child. They want to have a different life. They don't want to go back to the corporate world. They want to do something different. And that tends to be the catalyst for a lot of them. So everyone's got some sort of story, but it tends to be something that makes you want to shift direction. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you just sort of touched into this question that we're putting up now, actually, because I was really interested in what type of people tend to choose the franchise, and what sort of people it would suit in your mind. I mean, you said you have a lot of mums. I guess you have a few dads, and is it mostly, I guess, parents can empathize with a baby learning something new and gaining confidence and smiling and all of these things that come with swimming.
Yeah.
It's
So, I mean,
probably why it appeals. But
yeah, a typical Water Babies franchisee, if I look at them all and go, are they typical? Well, they've all got something in common, which tends to be what we've just described, which is they want to do something different in their lives. And as I say, most of our franchisees, the vast majority, were professional women who've gone on maternity leave. They want to go back to the rat race as they see it, to the corporate world, and they want to have greater autonomy in their lives. And they've come to our program as part of being on maternity leave. What we do at Water Babies, I mean, I kind of glossed over what the program is, but it touches people on many levels. If you think about it, when you're a new parent, a new mum, particularly if it's your first child, those of us that have been parents, you're terrified. How am I going to look after this little thing? Is it going to break? Am I worthy? All sorts of things. And actually, the first 10 weeks of the Water Babies program is all about that parent, all about that mum. And it's actually about building their confidence. And you see these young adults, these young mothers, parents, completely changing in terms of their self-confidence. In a few weeks with us, they're taking a little bundle. The lesson number 1, they've arrived with half of their family 5 hours before the lesson with a truckload of kit, and they're really nervous. 5 weeks later, they're letting go of their children underwater and watching them swim towards them, and they're just completely different people. And that what we find from a lot of them is they say their self-confidence, their self-esteem really grows, something they never really thought was going to happen to them. That combined with that time of their lives when they're thinking about what they really want to do in their lives, that's when they start to get brave and think, do you know what, actually, I quite fancy running my own business. And, and I've fallen in love with this business. I get this. And people really do fall in love with us at a really emotional level, and you can see the difference that we're making. And it just ticks an awful lot of boxes. It all coalesces at the same time, and people apply. And I think it's testament to Water Babies, actually, that before we went international across the UK, we never advertised for a single franchise in a traditional franchising way. Never advertised. Grew completely self-grew. And we grew incredibly rapidly. Yeah. So for us, that mix was really powerful, really, really powerful. And actually, we grew through word of mouth. I'm looking for people who are very genuine as franchisees, very genuine people. They've got to have the thing, as I keep referring to, that kind of empathy for us. And our job as a professional franchisor is to build on the business. They don't have to come to us with business skills. We give them all of that support. But if they've got that special characteristic, then we'll go. Then we'll take them on board. It's very, very, very hard to get a franchise off Water Babies. We're not interested in just the next person who's going to write us a check. It's very hard. You've got to fit the family that we are. It's got to be right for us. It's got to be right for you. So it's quite a process to take a franchise of us. So we've got a really, really good mix of franchisees because of that. And very quickly on the flip side, while we also have men as well, is that we also insist they always bring their partners with them or husbands when they come to their franchise day with us. And it's very interesting. A lot of those partners come not skeptically, but always going to be a bit of a plaything that my wife is going to do, a bit of a hobby business. And they should realise this is a major business turning over a lot of money. Significant profits. They're very significant businesses, Water Babies businesses. And a number of those partners end up giving up their careers and jumping in with their wives and running it together. And that happens a lot as well.
Oh, it's lovely as well, isn't it? You know, that because that can have a really strong effect on a family. I think, I, your type of business really taps into a lot of emotions that happen around that time, and any new parent can empathize with
Yeah.
these things, right? I remember when my first son, I brought him home, and I went, well, what am I going to
Yeah.
do now? I had this little baby, and I had no, new parents have no idea,
Yeah.
do they? And it's terrifying, isn't it? You don't really get any training apart from your own
Yeah.
parents. So it's really interesting that how you support during that initial period
Yeah.
of time. I'm going to get into something. We've got a good question coming up from Simon. Actually, I'm going to put that on the screen in a minute. But what I wanted to do, because again, if you're a potential franchisee listening to this, we've started to delve into who that might be. And we're getting to it a little bit more, some of those characteristics that you're looking for,
Yeah.
for that ideal Water Babies franchisee. But I think it's quite good to understand what that journey looks like for a potential
Yeah.
franchisee, because lots of parents can, I'm sure you get lots of inquiries, but
Mhm.
what does that process look like, that journey for a franchisee from the point that they make a phone call
Yeah.
or make an inquiry, not running the business, not the day to day, but that journey while they're getting to know you? What does that sort of look like
Yeah,
typically?
it's a really good question. It's a very, very long process for us, and we have quite a number of very defined steps. So they make initial inquiry, and we get back in touch with them. Historically, I used to speak to them, but now a member of the franchise team will speak to them. So there's an initial phone call that we have with them, and that's to see straight off the bat whether it's something that's right for them. So people often have a few misconceptions about Water Babies. For example, they think it's just a small part-time business. That's a common misconception. And very quickly we have to tell them this will be your main living, and it's a very large, significant business, and you'll be employing lots of people, etc., etc. So that's one. So we sort of have an initial phone call where we fill in some of the gaps for them, and then we send them out a questionnaire which they have to fill in if they're still interested, and they send that questionnaire back to us. And we say to them really nicely at the end of the phone call, we're going to send you a questionnaire, but we're only going to take you seriously when that questionnaire comes back, and we don't chase you. It's an element of, have you got self-motivation? Can you fill out this?
Yeah, of course. Of
So they've
course.
got to fill out the questionnaire. And as part of the questionnaire process, we ask them to go off and research franchising. We tell them where and how to do it, to go to the British Franchise Association and find out about franchising. And we tell them what they're looking for, because we want them to go and get independent advice. And we say this to them, we want to go and get independent advice. So when you come to meet us, you should be armed with a myriad of quite difficult questions. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? How does it operate like this? And we should be able to answer those questions without any prevarication to prove to you that we're a professional franchisor. So they go away, they fill out the questionnaire, it comes back, then we have a franchise day with them, and we insist that they bring their partner with them as a minimum, but they can bring anybody they want. And we say the more skeptical, the better, because they tend to come along, all starry-eyed. But we want people who are also skeptical, who are you and why do you do this, etc. We're going to ask some of the harder questions. But we always want to see their partner. Are they supported? Are they not supported? So they come for a franchise day. It's a very thorough day, and they meet the whole Water Babies team. We've got a broad team, finance, marketing, etc. And they spend time with the whole team throughout that day, really understanding what it is to be a franchisee, what the support structures are, etc. And then we send them away and we say, we don't want to hear from you for at least 2 or 3 days, normally 3 days, because you've got some thinking to do about whether this is right for you or not. And if they come back and say they're still interested, that's when we get into business planning. And we do the whole business planning exercise with them, but really number crunching. We get them to build their own business plan with our support, because every potential franchisee's circumstances is very different. And at the end of the business planning process, we're able to look at them and go, right, you've now spent all of this time with us. And there are quite a few touch points throughout business planning as well. You've now got your business plan, and you can see the bottom line, how much this business is going to make for you if it does X, Y, and Z going forward, which is all very cautious. Does that work for you? Is that what you want? Does that make sense? And there's been a long journey together. Everything I've just described is a sort of a 3 to 4 month journey throughout all of that process. And up until that point, they've committed nothing. They can stop at any point. And even at the end of that, they can turn around and go, no, it's not for us. And we're quite happy. And we would go, great, because you found out that it's not for you. That's absolutely fine.
That's really important what you've just said there, actually. So they're going through all of that. They're getting to know. They're really trying to understand whether this is right for them on a long-term basis. But they haven't had to invest money at that point. They haven't had to sign a franchise agreement. You know, but they're still getting all of that exchange and knowledge sharing with you, and you're really trying to build a good foundation for a decision making, encouraging them to talk to the BFA, encouraging them to challenge you. I love that. That's
correct. Because what we want, we're a huge family in Water Babies, and it's all built on trust. We don't want a franchisee coming in going, you just hard sold me something, you didn't tell me X, Y, and Z. We could not be more opposite to that, which is why I say it's very hard to get a franchise office, because right from the very first phone call, we warn them there's going to be no hard sell. In fact, we're probably going to work quite hard to put you off. So, you've really got to want this. So it's a real process of them learning to believe that is the case as they go through, because correctly, they should be skeptical at the beginning. So it's just going to be another hard sell business, and we're not like that, and they've got to learn that. At the end of business planning, when they say yes, that's when they have to commit, and that's when they have to pay us a deposit. And then that's when we go into for an exclusivity, and that's when we then go into the legal process. So we send them the franchise agreements, et cetera, and go down that path, help them to get financing. So go through the last bit of the journey, which is actually signing up to the franchise. They sign up to the franchise. Again, that journey, that bit of the journey takes a couple of months, getting funding and so forth. We send them off to the banks. We help them with all of that process. We hold their hands through all of that. They sign on the dotted line, and then, of course, they've got to go through their training. And you're not fully ticked off as a Water Babies franchisee until you've completed that training. You have to pass that training, and you have to pass it. If you don't meet our standard, we won't keep you as a franchisee. We'll give you your money back and tell you it wasn't for you. But to be honest, by that stage, the process has been so thorough that we know you're going to get through your training.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we've only had once in our history, we've gone, "Ooh, that didn't work." But everyone.
Again, it's good to know. It's good to know because you care about getting franchisees that are passionate and align with what you do. You care about that, and you care about that enough where you're encouraging people to really take their time in that decision. And even like you say there, even if they get to that point where they've paid it and the training didn't go as planned, they still can get their money back and go if it wasn't right.
Correct.
Like you rightly said, it's very unusual, but
we take that bit incredibly seriously. In the UK, we've done it once, given some of their money back, and I actually stopped a franchise process when we first went to Germany, with somebody gone right to the end of the wire, and through the training process, actually they turned out to be just a different person, somebody who just didn't really fit with us culturally. They hadn't done anything materially wrong. We just knew that would be a relationship that would be very challenging. And they were very surprised when I phoned them one day and said, it's been nice, but it's not for us. It won't be right for you. And here's your money back. So it's incredibly important to us that we get the right people, and we go through a process that's really thorough and quite long. It goes quickly, but it's long to get the right person. So that when they start, they really feel they've gone through the right process. And then they're off and running with their business, and we're there to support them.
Fantastic. And we're going to get into what the day-to-day looks like. But I love what you said earlier, and I'm going to very quickly touch on this because you said fit the family, and I think that's what it's about, isn't it? It's getting people who fit the family. Let's have a look. We've got a couple of really good questions come in live here. So let's bring those up. Let's bring one up from Simon. Simon's put, how did you discover franchising, Paul? And what made you choose franchising to grow your business? This is a great question. You're clearly passionate, so passionate about what you do. It comes across in every word. But franchising, it's a unique model. It's not for everyone. It's not for every business. But what made you choose franchising? Was that in your mind from the beginning, or did that come as the business grew?
When we started Water Babies back in 2002, the idea then was just to run a small swim school. I was going to be in Yorkshire, run a small swim school. We thought we'd have a few clients, and I was going to do a bit of part-time property, and that was it. We got to the magic point. This is the day before social media and so forth, where we had created our brand. We only had £5,000 to start Water Babies. We created our brand. We had leaflets and posters and our website. And we went, well, how are we going to get clients? We'd found 5 swimming pools in the Yorkshire area. We thought, how are we going to get clients? Well, I don't know, they are pushing a pram or they're in a coffee house holding a baby. So let's run around the streets and give out leaflets. That was it. That's how sophisticated it was. And we ran out on day one going, if we get 30 or 40 people, we gave ourselves 6 weeks. If we get 30 or 40 people, that's amazing. That is amazing. That was the limit of our expectation. On day 3, I went to a lady in Tesco's car park and gave her a leaflet. And she turned around to me and went, that is the 3rd time you have given me a leaflet on a Thursday. And I thought, I think we've done it properly. I came back that afternoon and our builder, who was helping us to renovate our house at the time, came running down the stairs. He'd been there through the whole growth story of us creating our brand, with an A4 piece of paper in his hand with 16 phone numbers on it. And he'd been on the phone all morning going, hello, water babies, as our first ever administrator. Jumping up and down with excitement. Oh my God, we've got clients. And it just went nuts. The Mother's Network just went bang. And actually we started 5 weeks later with over 100 clients. Wow. We thought, and I'm going to come to the answering the question is just to get there. We thought that, okay, we've got something a bit bigger here, but still not thinking it was going to be anything massive. You know, we still wanted this part-time life. That was still our thinking. And clients used to sign up for 5 weeks. That was it. We thought they'd sign up for 5 weeks and they'd leave. After the end of our first 5 weeks, everyone wanted to carry on. So before I knew it, I was scrabbling to generate more lesson plans to carry on with our client base. And that's how we grew. And that was in June of 2002. That's when we started. At the Christmas of 2002, so barely a few months in, the phone went off twice in the same week, completely unsolicited. One was from my sister-in-law at the time, Bryony, who was working in Bristol, and one from friends of mine working in Edinburgh. And they both went, we really want to get involved. We want to get out of the corporate world. We want to get involved. We'd love to do what you're doing. And I laughed because we weren't soliciting for this. They came and met us and we had a serious conversation. And that's when we looked at different models for growing a business. And that's when we came across franchising as an idea. And having done a bit of research, and we're quite anal about really being very professional, we looked really deeply at it and thought, actually, that could work, because as a franchisee, you get to support, you're in a support structure, you're not on your own, and that suited them. And as a franchisor, you get to control systems, standards, quality, and that suited us. And so we gave it a go. We set them up. We did research on the internet and thought we had to have a legal agreement and all of these things. And we did it all DIY. We did it ourselves. We set them up and they both went bang, bang as well. In no time, they had over 100 clients. And that's when we went, ooh, we've got something serious here and we're into franchising. That's when I got in touch with the British Franchise Association and went along to go and get myself a consultant. And that's when we professionalized becoming a franchisor. We're right, franchising is the way for us. We've got 2 franchisees. We need to do this properly. Let's get some consultants on board. And it was the franchising centre back then that helped us, Bill Pegram, and set this up properly. And it took us 6 months to set up properly. And along that journey, this whole Mother's Network kept on happening. We had 2 more inquiries during that journey. And less than just over a year in, we had 4 franchises on the go. And then it just exploded. We went from 4 to 14 in 1 year, just all through word of mouth. It just went bang all over the country.
Word of mouth as well, yeah. It's one of those natural progressions, isn't it? You know, when you go to a swim school and you see the teacher and you see what happens in those lessons, and then as a parent, you kind of sometimes naturally want to do that, don't you? So there's this sort of natural progression from signing up to be part of the class to maybe wanting to be a teacher or an instructor, and then the next natural progression from that is running that business. And
that is
such a lovely thing, but it's actually almost stopping that flood of people, and making sure you pick the right one.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I love to say is the very first 3 people we ever employed all ended up becoming franchisees, and they're still franchisees today, running very successful businesses. Those are the very first 3 people we ever employed. And that story echoes throughout Water Babies. So the story of how did I discover franchising is actually the wrong way around. Franchising discovered me, really. Really, if I'm being very honest about it. I didn't go into it thinking I want to set up a franchise business. We kind of stumbled across it, realized it was a model that could work for us, and then went for it properly. And I think that's the key thing, is we did it properly. We took the advice, we got consultants on board. I'm always big on that. People have heard me talk in the past, is get the right advice and follow that advice and set yourself up professionally. and do it properly.
Oh,
and that's the business you're then in, and that's what we did. And we just accelerated really quickly through the franchising model. It suited us. It worked for us really, really well.
See, I mean, that's exactly it, isn't it? Seek expert advice, and then, you'll do these things right.
Correct.
So love it. Let's halfway through, actually. So if you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories. And today we are hearing what's under the hat to babies with the wonderful Paul Thompson. Been a fantastic story. If you have just scan the QR code and it will take you right back to the beginning so that you can have a look at that. Catch a snippet in the future, please, code, so that you can see this fascinating and wonderful story. I'm really enjoying it so far and looking forward to hearing more. Let's get into another question here, because it's great to have some live questions, and let's see what I think we've got a good question coming up here from Katrina and from Julie. Let's put this one up on the screen briefly. And I think after this, we're going to get into what a day in the life of a franchisee might look like. Katrina's put, that's great that you welcome any skeptical member of the family too, not just the partner. What percentage of people make it through the process from point of meeting you with their family? It's a great question. I mean, you've alluded to the fact that there's probably more people you turn down than people you accept because you're just trying to get the right people.
Correct. But by the time they've come to their franchise day, there's been quite a filtering process at that point. So post the franchising day, I'd say the percentage is actually pretty high. It's over 80%. People that come to a franchise day will end up being a Water Babies franchisee. But that's because they've gone through quite a preamble to get to that point. So it's pretty high at that stage. You've got to have been pretty committed and pretty driven to get yourself to the point. So even though I said it's a questionnaire, there's a lot of work you've got to do to complete that questionnaire. There's a lot of research you've done. So they tend to come pretty motivated and pretty well informed by the time they've come to our franchise day. And if I'm being honest, I think we at that point tends to be filling in the blanks for them. And it's more a process of, from their point of view, of reassurance that what they thought it is what it is, and hopefully actually it's better than it is. One of the things I do at the end of that day, actually, always a final question is, you thought X about us at the beginning, what do you think about us at the end of the day? And that's always night and day, that answer, which is always very interesting. So there's quite a high success rate after that, because people are then really, really motivated after that. They tend, sounds like we're really blowing our own trumpet, but they tend to go, I want to be part of this club. I really want to join this family. We're it's a very unique place, Water Babies.
It seems it. You're getting a lot of compliments here from for your approach, and I second the motion. You're trying to empower people to ask the right questions, even if they weren't going to ask that question in the first place. You're trying to get them to go away so that they understand franchising, they understand what it is they're going to get into, and then they can ask some challenging questions of which you can answer.
Yeah, indeed.
Rather than accepting the fact that they're not answering any questions and just happy to go ahead. I think powerful and really important. Let's have a little look now at a question. I think we've spoken a little bit about what type of people that you're looking to attract and what the process might be. Actually, before we go on to this, let's have a little bit more about that fit the family and the characteristics of a potential franchisee. Are there some sort of easy to name characteristics that someone needs to have that would help them get to the end? It's
interesting, actually. It's easy to name because people always ask me this one, and it's not that easy because we're looking for a sort of a special. It's a special bit of je ne sais quoi, really. So. You're going to be, what's a typical Water Babies franchisee? Well, the first thing they certainly are is nice. They're nice people, fun, honourable, professional in their outlook. They want to do a really good job in what they do. Passionate about what we do. You've got to have a real love for what we do. It can't just be it's a business idea. You've got to have a love for what we do. So they've got to tick some of those boxes. But to put it in context, we've had people who are everything from a doctor to a policewoman to the whole spectrum of life, to ex-swimming teachers who become franchisees. So it's a really broad spectrum of people. So we're looking for a really special character, and I've said it a few times. We call it the thing, and the best way I can describe this is actually when you come to join Water Babies as an employee, not as a franchisee, but the principle is the same. The very first thing we ask you to do when you come for your interview at Water Babies isn't to talk to us about the job or your professional background. Is we ask you to do something called the essence of me, which is for the first 10 minutes, just tell us who you are. Give us a presentation about you as a person, not your professional life, you as a person. And the way we do that, somebody comes in, they're prepped, they've got to do this, and they come in, and whoever's in the office that day, and we have a real in and out office, we'll simply go and get half a dozen people who are sitting around the office. That could be me, down to an administrator, to anybody's in the office, and they will say, we've got an essence of me coming in, come in the room, and they'll come in the room. They'll listen to the essence of me for 10 minutes. The person will leave the room, and then that group of people will go, have they got the thing? Are they part of the family? And the reason we can pick anybody is that all of those people have got the thing. That's why they're in the Water Babies family. And we're just looking for, are they nice? Are they decent? Are they honourable? Do they care? Are they genuine? You know, it's all of these things. And if we don't feel that, it's very unlikely you're either going to become an employee or become a franchisee. And when we're doing the franchise process, it's similar. When they come for their franchise day, one of the reasons they go around and meet all the team isn't just to find out from the team what they're going to give them, but for the team to assess them. Have they got the thing? Will they fit our family? Will they fit our culture? Mm-hmm. Now, just because you don't fit our culture doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means Water Babies isn't for you. Maybe finance is for you, or something else is for you. The whole world doesn't have to be for Water Babies, but it just means you won't fit us. It won't work for you, and it won't work for us. So that it's a very difficult way to answer that question, but hopefully people.
I think you answered it very well, and I think it's really good to hear those characteristics. Actually, kindness, care, being nice. Actually, these are words that people don't often choose. You know, they choose the word passion or they choose the word determination. Right? It's lovely to hear that, because sometimes those words aren't associated with somebody in business, but they should be. They really should be, because being successful in business, you can still be kind and caring and nice, you know. So I love that. We're gonna get in now to what a day might look like, because I think it's a really nice way to build a picture for somebody as to what it would be like for them if they're a franchisee. So what does a day in the life of a Water Babies franchisee look like?
Well, I think I've got one of my franchisees here. They'd go, it's completely mental. So the first thing to say is that they're big businesses. So our biggest business in Water Babies teaches just shy of 3,000 clients a week. An average Water Babies business teaches around 1,000 clients a week. So they're big businesses. They will be employing anything from, depending on the size of their business, 2 to 20 teachers, part-time teachers, and they'll have an office team of 3 or 4 people. So there's a lot of people going on. So that's the first thing. So you're managing all of that. It's a lot of clients, and you'll have a lot of classes going on any given day. So typical days, you'll have a number of classes going on. If you take a Saturday, which is our busiest day, you'll have umpteen classes going across your franchise territory. All of your teachers out there delivering those classes, and you'll be managing that process, making sure that that's going to be a smooth experience for both the employees and, of course, the clients and the receiving end of all of that. You're dealing with pools closing on you at the last minute. You know, something happens with the pool, it goes down, you've got to move all the clients around. You're finding new swimming pools as well, so you're going to look at those venues and get those on board. You're training new teachers. There's a plethora of things that you're doing running a Water Babies business. It's very, very multifaceted. You have a broad set of skills. You're marketing your business. You're doing the finance back at the ranch to make sure that your financial bits and pieces are all in place. You know, you're doing your bookkeeping and so forth. You're preparing for your next photo shoot, which is going to be in a few months' time. There's an awful lot of moving parts. So I'm doing that very quickly, but the life of a Water Babies franchisee is very, very, very busy, very multifaceted, and forever changing. It's rarely consistent. And one of the things we look for in people who become Water Babies franchisees is the reality of that. It's really, really hard work. It's really hard work. When you've got a successful Water Babies business and you've got a team and it's all running, then, and I believe that a good business is being run by a team, not by the founder, it's being run by that team, then you can enjoy a really good quality of life. Water Babies franchisees, we operate on the basically like school terms, so they can have summer, Easter and Christmas off and have that time with their families. Half term is a break for us as well in most franchises. So when you're running a really good business, you're working 40 weeks of the year, 42 weeks of the year, 44 weeks of the year, and you've got the rest of the time off to be with your family. But the business is still running behind you. So you've got your team helping you to do that. But you've got to work really, really hard to get to that point. They're very large entities. They're very large businesses.
Oh, absolutely. I think that really, yeah, absolutely. Oh. What I'd like to get to, what I'd like to get to now is my favorite part of this, actually. And I know you're going to have lots of these stories, but you know, you've already described how this business is changing people's lives. And, you know, with thousands of classes happening and, you know, all of these franchisees, you must know of many life-changing stories and fantastic characters. But are there any that really sort of stick out in your mind? You know, this is from the perspective of a member of staff, of a franchisee, or of you know, one of the parents taking the class. Anybody, let us know some of those.
There are so many. Water Babies is such a personal business. There's so many of these stories. Go choose one. So I think I'll go one that's sort of the product end of it, which is what we do, because we're passionate about what we do. And we've had many stories where we've actually saved children's lives. We always think if we've done nothing else in Water Babies, we've saved a number of children's lives, because we know we are teaching swimming. And one story that always sticks out, one of the first ones, actually made the national news, was one of our clients who had a toddler, a couple of years old, who'd been a client just under 2 years, actually, just about a year and a half, been a client with us since birth. And the toddler was they had a swimming pool in their house, gated off and locked all very safe. And they're in the kitchen, and their toddler was in a little party dress. They were going off to a fairy party that day. And the toddler just went off away from the kitchen. Mother lost contact with the daughter. And then suddenly realized she'd lost contact and went to find her daughter. And the swimming pool door was open in their house. And the daughter had gone in. Now, 9 times out of 10, that is a tragic story, because the daughter had fallen in the pool. The mother had run in, and the time that she'd lost her daughter, the time that she found her, the thick end of 10 minutes had gone by. So more than enough time for a tragic outcome. But she ran in the pool with her daughter holding onto the side of the pool with a completely wet, saturated dress on, holding onto the side of the pool with a big smile on her face going, "Mum, can I come out now?" And she'd fallen in, turned around, and everything we taught her held on. And we've had a number of stories like that. I've got at least a dozen of those examples. So we've saved literally.
That's amazing. And it was, you know, what more powerful thing can you even think of in terms of changing someone's life? You know, you've saved these little ones' lives, you know, and saved the lives of those families. You know, it's so powerful. That's so amazing.
Knock-on effect is massive. And I think the other quick thing I would say is from the franchisee's point of view, which is what we're here talking about, is their life stories. So I said to you, the very first 3 people we ever employed in Water Babies are still running large Water Babies businesses. Now, none of those people would have thought that they would end up where they are now. They've got their own homes, they've got good incomes, they run their own businesses, they're completely independent, self-made people, starting from very, very humble backgrounds all those years ago. And, you know, we're rife with those sorts of stories as well, where we've really given people an opportunity they never thought they would otherwise get. And that goes right across us. That's the thing that I'm most proud about in Water Babies. We've got people who've gone from being clients to swimming teachers to working in the head office to now either running the company as a director in the company, being an international franchisee, running their franchise business. That is our story. It's a continual one. It's constantly being fed. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. There's people now I've now sold. And some of the lovely stories I had from some of my franchisees in the back of that just had me in tears about how Water Babies has changed their lives and what it meant for them and how it changed them and gave them opportunities from all sorts of challenging backgrounds. So we've affected a lot of people and continue to. And I'm hugely, hugely proud. So the thing I'm the most proud of is just how we've affected people. We're a people-centric business. That's the bit that matters the most.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. I mean, you've sort of completed that journey, haven't you, from that spark of the idea to now selling the business.
Yes.
Do you still have an involvement in the business? You're clearly still incredibly passionate about it and love the business very much. But how are you still involved then in the business?
I am a non-executive director now, so
Oh.
I am now the elder statesman of Water Baby, sitting on the board. I still have a very, very tiny stake in the company, so I've still got an involvement in it. But
Love it.
to be honest, even if I didn't, I would. You know, I spent 22 years growing this,
Of
I
course,
was going to say,
of
this
course.
beast, this great thing, and
It's part of the journey, isn't it?
it's part of the
It's
journey. And
part of that journey.
I'm
It's a
very
sustained journey. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think it's an interesting one to say actually, because good for me. I've sold, and I've retired, and that's been great for me. But actually, when I look now at the company, the people now running the company are all the people that were there when I was running the company. It's the next generation that are coming through. I'm an old man. I'm 60 next year. Can't believe that. So I'm an old boy, and you can outlive your usefulness. And you've got to give the next generation a chance. And I can think of a couple of people who are now directors of Water Babies, who are now running that business, who started off, as I said, as teachers or junior members of staff all those years ago, and here they are now. And it's their company, it's their business. They're running it. Well, they've got a huge involvement in running it. So that's really important. And that's the same for a franchisee. We've helped many of our franchisees sell their businesses, and most of those sales go to members of their team as well, who are the next generation coming through. That's part of the whole Water Babies cycle. And it's incredibly rewarding. All of those franchisees that have sold have turned around to me and said it's really meaningful for them that they've grown something, had success in it, enjoyed it, and being able to pass it on to people that they've mentored or employed as well. That's really satisfying. That's how I feel about transitioning as well. So
absolutely,
yeah,
that's wonderful. Well, look, we have now. Paul, I could talk to you for about 3 hours. I really could. It's just a fantastic story, and your passion just comes across in absolute buckets full. So I love it. But look, we're going to come to the end now, and we're going to talk about the future.
okay.
So this is the time for the Franchising Brand Stories exclusive, of course. Perhaps you could let us know what's sort of coming up for Water Babies in the future. You mentioned that you're in some other countries doing the same thing. What type of things is going to happen in the coming months and years?
Well, constantly taking over the world, of course. So no, but the biggest thing, which isn't the secret, is America. That's one of the big things, not the biggest thing, one of the big things. So we bought a swim school in America a couple of years ago called Water Babies as well in Seattle, and we are now rolling out a franchise network. Indeed, whole other story to that as well, but positive one. And we're rolling out a franchise system across the states. We're rolling out Water Babies across the USA. Wow. So that's a big part of what's going on with the company. And the other countries I spoke about, most of those countries as well, we're looking to expand in those. So our international side is going to get larger. But our motherland is the UK. That's still the mothership, and there's lots of initiatives going on there. Probably the other exciting thing is that we're expanding into the older age groups as well, and we're creating a whole new. This bit I can't say too much about. They're a little exclusive, as we're creating a whole new way of people engaging with swimming. Swimming for older kids is pretty boring, actually. You jump into a semi-warm swimming pool and you're told to go up and down, do lengths, and that's great. And that's particularly great if you're trying to produce an Olympian. And we had our first Olympian, by the way, at the last Olympics, with a gold medal, which was a baby. Yeah, that's a nice note to retire on. But that's not what we're about. So what we want is people to have a love of water and to have water as part of their lives, and to that swimming, sailing, scuba diving, to be comfortable and have fun of water generally. And we think the way you can teach people to get that love of water is different to the mainstream. So we've got some pretty clever ideas around that. We're developing a new program, which we're going to be rolling out to the world around that. So watch this space. Very soon we're going to be launching that. We're very, very excited about that. So we're going to revolutionize swimming. How about that? It's a bit of a scoop.
Now that's the way to end. Fantastic. Well, look, what I want to do now, because we have pretty much got to the end today, I'm going to ask you if you've got any final thoughts to share. As I say, I could keep talking to you for ages, but while you are doing that, there is now a QR code up on the top left of the screen that will take you to the Water Babies franchise part of their website. So please scan that if you are wanting to find out more, and you'll be able to meet that fantastic team. So yes, Paul, if you could now just finish with any final thoughts you'd like to share before I move on to talking what we're going to do later this week and next week and that sort of thing.
Well, I think probably the way I'd like to end, it's sort of a message to people who are thinking about becoming franchisees, is go for it. Go for it. It's a very scary step, starting to run your own business. Taking that step is a big, scary moment in your lives. And you're right to be nervous about it, but it can be absolutely transformational, not just from a business success point of view, but from how it affects you as an individual and how you feel about yourself. So if you really are thinking about it, I would say be courageous and go for it. And if you find the right franchise brand, they will support you through that process, which is the beauty of franchising. You have someone to hold your hand, so you're not on your own. When you look back after you've made that first step, I think you'll think very differently about the person that you are. So if it's in your head, be brave and give it a go.
Love it. What a great way to end. I'd like to thank everybody who has been here live today. I'd like to thank everybody who's going to watch this in the future. It's a story that certainly needs to be watched, and it's a very unique and lovely business. And I'd like to thank you, Paul, for taking your time and sharing your story with us today. It's been fantastic to hear it. Thank you so much. So next week on the franchise, no problem. Next week on the franchise show, we are talking franchise mediation in New Zealand. So that's going to be a very interesting subject, very interesting part of the world, and that is 15th of February, Tuesday the 18th of February. So please join us for that. And next Thursday on Franchising Brand Stories, we are going to hear what's under the hat of FranRec, our lovely sponsors. So Simon is going to be telling his story. So please join us Thursday, the 20th of February, 5:15 GMT for that story. So until next time, take very good care and see you next time. Take care. Cheers.